In the genial, affable year of 1908, a genial, affable candidate for the presidency, Roosevelt's Secretary of War, William Howard Taft, the nation's first golf-playing statesman, all 340 pounds of him. The poetry of the press sizes him up. A solid man both fore and aft is he who's known as Mr. Taft. Because of bias against the third term, Roosevelt declines to run, but he handpicks Taft to succeed him. Taft campaigns on an admirable background as federal judge, first Governor General of the Philippines, staunch supporter of the Roosevelt policies, which he promises to continue. He likes people. People like him. William Jennings Bryan carries the Democratic banner. Bryan, the great commoner. Once he electrified the nation with his Cross of Gold speech for the free coinage of silver. Twice before he has run for the presidency unsuccessfully. And now, despite his uncommon power as an orator, he is unsuccessful again. The times are right for a William Howard Taft in the White House. The financial panic of 1907 has abated, and the nation is prospering and expanding. With the coming admission of Arizona and New Mexico to the Union, Taft will be the first president of all 48 states. Says the New York Sun, never did any man come into the presidency before with such universal goodwill. A time of innocence and security. A Boston newspaper prints a sweeping generalization on the state of the nation. Everyone is busily, happily getting ahead. Fifth Avenue comes to regard itself as the equivalent of the Rue de la Paix and Bond Street. Why not? Looking back on the fashions of the time, Consuelo Vanderbilt will one day write, how charming they all were in their picture hats and organdies, so incompatible with comfort, but so becoming. Oh, you beautiful doll, you great big beautiful doll. It isn't all picture hats and organdy. Feminism is on the march. A growing revolt of women against taboos and restraints in general, and for the right to vote in particular. The suffragettes are dismissed by some as a band of silly, excited, exaggerated women. But in their parades are the rumblings of deep social change, the ascendancy of the woman in American life. As one protests, I am tired of being ladylike. We've been ladylike for 6,000 years. After dark, the theater. The theater of Minnie Maddern Fisk, Maud Adams, and Maxine Elliott, of John Drew, Otis Skinner, and George M. Cohan, and of the ever-popular Lillian Russell, who starred at Tony Pastor's well before the turn of the century, and who is still the American beauty, queen of comic opera and respectable burlesque. But from the palace in New York to the stages of 1,000 tank towns coast to coast, theater means vaudeville. Variety that runs the whole gamut from big-time Broadway to 100 small-time acts, which, once seen, are soon forgotten. Vaudeville's dancing days are numbered. A trick of making photographic images move, something called the mutoscope, a peep show of animated pictures, has been discovered. As vaudeville dances out, the movies come dancing in. Many minds create the motion picture, but one of its most fertile innovators is Thomas Alva Edison, the wizard of Menlo Park, inventor of the electric light, inventor of the phonograph, holder of 800 patents on the mechanical marvels that are changing and enriching American life. From the Edison Company comes the first movie to tell a complete story, the first feature film, The Great Train Robbery. Overnight, a fading, flickering novelty becomes a new form of mass entertainment, mass-produced. The techniques of the 20th century expand the ancient craft of storytelling beyond the wildest imagination of the Arabian Nights. 1,001 tales of romance, mystery, and adventure come from the assembly lines of new dream factories called studios. The silent pictures speak a universal language. In California, where the sun collaborates with the camera, the movies go on location to capture scenes no studio can hold. Admission 5 cents at the Nickelodeon. And the poor man's entertainment becomes the major American pastime, a ready-made escape into a new world of fantasy and fun with stars like Mary Pickford, Little Mary, queen of the movies. Lillian Gish, innocence in the wicked city. Claire McDowell, a lover scorned. Charlie Chaplin, high humor and low comedy. The movies discover new laws of comedy. If a chase is funny, a riot is funnier. If a cop is funny, a gross of cops are hilarious. The fictions of the screen are no match for the authentic drama of the time, for reality. April 1906. The worst earthquake ever recorded, followed by fire that makes a double catastrophe. Jack London gives the world his eyewitness account. Not in history has a modern imperial city been so completely destroyed. San Francisco is gone. Nothing remains of it but memories and a fringe of dwelling houses on its outskirts. San Francisco is like the crater of a volcano around which are camped tens of thousands of refugees. All the cunning adjustments of a 20th century city have been smashed by the earthquake. All the shrewd contrivances and safeguards of man have been thrown out of gear by 30 seconds twitching of the Earth's crust. Will Irwin's dispatch from the scene is an epitaph. The old San Francisco is dead, the gayest, lightest-hearted, most pleasure-loving city of this continent. And later, in Ohio and Indiana, some of the worst floods in American history follow in the wake of storm and tornado. Above Dayton, Ohio, a dam breaks. A city is overwhelmed. Hundreds die. Now political upheaval visits the American scene with Theodore Roosevelt's return in June of 1910. After 15 months abroad, shooting lions and elephants in Africa, consorting with kings and queens in Europe, the colonel comes home to a royal welcome in New York as the world's first citizen. Teddy Roosevelt steps back into the national limelight. Thousands, and not only in New York, let the ex-president know they wish him to be president again. Roosevelt is receptive. He feels his policies are being forgotten and his advice ignored by the man he put in the White House. Between the two Republican leaders, the one-time close friends, Roosevelt and Taft, the struggle for domination grows with time into an historic split in the party. Says Roosevelt in the presidential campaign of 1912, "My hat is in the ring, the fight is on, and I am stripped to the buff." Unable to win the regular Republican nomination, which again goes to Taft, he strikes out on his own, feeling, as he puts it, like a bull moose. His self-styled progressive faction becomes known as the Bull Moose Party, and in a rip-roaring campaign, he rouses his followers. "We fight in honorable fashion for the good of mankind. We stand at Armageddon, and we battle for the Lord." The fighting colonel campaigns on a program of welfare legislation and the vote for women. And not even the bullet of a would-be assassin in Milwaukee interrupts his whirlwind tour. But the split in the Republican Party is fatal. Though Roosevelt rallies more followers to his cause than Taft, in the end, it is the Democratic candidate, Woodrow Wilson, who polls more votes than Roosevelt and Taft together. Roosevelt's third party dissolves. He admits, "The fight is over. We are beaten." For the first time in the 20th century, a Democratic president takes office. Woodrow Wilson, a striking contrast to the outgoing Taft, scholarly, austere, a reformer. The profound change in political leadership in Washington is symptomatic of graver times to come, in America, in the world. Formerly president of Princeton University and progressive governor of New Jersey, Woodrow Wilson is intent on solving America's domestic problems by eliminating what he considers special privilege and by curbing the power of the monopolies. He calls his program the New Freedom. But Woodrow ironically finds himself deep in international affairs as soon as he takes office. In Mexico, American interests and American lives are endangered by political uprisings, armed clashes, and anarchy. After more than 3 years of what he calls watchful waiting, Woodrow Wilson is compelled to order American troops to the Mexican border. National Guardsmen and regular Army troops head for the Rio Grande. Their mission? To pursue and capture the Mexican revolutionary leader Pancho Villa, who has been raiding across the border, killing American soldiers and civilians, destroying American property. The American people demand he be brought to the United States for trial and punishment. Their patience is exhausted. 15,000 troops prepare for action south of the border. This is not a war. It is a punitive expedition. But before Pancho Villa and his hard-riding guerrillas can be punished, they must first be tracked down across difficult, unfamiliar terrain and captured. Brigadier General John J. Pershing orders his troops into the Chihuahua Desert, with the saber-wielding 11th United States Cavalry in the van. changing pattern of war, a forecast of tomorrow. The airplane put into action by the United States Army for the first time. But the new machine in the air is no more effective than the traditional foot soldier on the ground in finding the lawless, the elusive Pancho Villa. Casualties on either side are few, and the fruitless hunt for the outlaw peters out, overshadowed by the drift of world events. The war that has broken out in Europe, the Great War, cancels the significance of a mere border skirmish. The United States withdraws from Mexico, withdraws from yesterday. Once again, from Sagamore Hill comes the voice to which the nation has listened since the century began. Theodore Roosevelt urges his countrymen to prepare for the conflict he knows must come. And once again, they listen. It is his last great service. And President Wilson says, "Events have made us citizens of the world. There can be no turning back. We are provincials no longer." There is no turning back. But there is pause on the brink of the future. Americans, with the ordeal of World War still before them, with their sense of self-sufficiency as yet unshaken, emerge gradually, reluctantly, from their provincial past as the innocent years fade into history. But on the great days of remembrance, like the 4th of July, the old joys, the old simplicities survive. And every heart beats true under red, white, and blue.